Captain Taeho stared at the display screen in front of him. The numbers didn't make sense. His ship, the UES Horizon's Edge, had been mining asteroids for 3 months now. It was boring work, but it paid well. The crew needed the money, and Earth needed the rare metals they found in space. But today was different. Today, something strange appeared on their sensors. "Captain," called Hana from her station. She was the ship's engineer and the smartest person Taeho knew. Her dark hair was always messy from working in tight spaces, fixing things that broke. "You need to see this." Taeho walked over to her workstation. The other crew members looked up from their tasks. There were only 6 of them on this small mining ship. Everyone knew everyone else's business. "What is it?" Taeho asked. Hana pointed at her screen. "There's something big out there. Really big. It's about 2 hours away if we change course." "Is it another asteroid?" asked Kyung-soo, the ship's medic. He was a thin man who worried about everything. "We already have enough rocks to fill our cargo hold." "No," Hana said. "It's metal. Shaped metal. I think it's a ship." The bridge went quiet. In all their years of space travel, they had never found anything like that. Humans had been exploring space for over 100 years. They had found planets, moons, asteroids, and gas clouds. But never had they found proof that other intelligent life existed. "Are you sure?" Taeho asked. Hana nodded. "The readings are clear. It's definitely artificial. And Captain, it's huge, much bigger than our ship." Yoonji, their pilot, looked up from her controls. She was young but skilled at flying their ship through dangerous asteroid fields. "Do we report this to Earth Command?" Taeho thought about it. Earth Command would tell them to stay away and wait for a military ship to investigate. That could take months. By then, whatever was out there might be gone. "Let's take a look first," he decided. "But we stay careful. If there's any sign of danger, we leave immediately." The crew prepared for course change. It took 2 hours to reach the strange object, and when they got close enough to see it clearly, everyone stopped talking. The ship was enormous. It looked like a dark crystal that had been carved into the shape of a blade. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a dim purple light. No windows could be seen anywhere. "I'm not reading any life signs," Kyung-soo reported, checking his medical scanners. "But that doesn't mean much. If they're aliens, our equipment might not detect them." "Any energy readings?" Taeho asked Hana. "Very low," she replied. "Whatever this thing is, it's barely using any power. It might be dead in space." They circled the alien ship for an hour, taking pictures and measurements. The ship was at least 5 times longer than theirs. It looked old, like it had been floating in space for a very long time. "Captain," Yoonji said quietly, "I found something. There's a docking port on the side. It looks different from ours, but I think I can connect to it." Taeho felt his heart beating faster. This was the most important discovery in human history. But it was also terrifying. "We should call for backup," Kyung-soo said nervously. "No," Hana said firmly. "If we leave now and come back with the military, they might take over everything. This is our discovery. We should at least look inside." Taeho made his decision. "We dock with it, but only 3 of us go aboard. The others stay here and keep the engines ready. At the first sign of trouble, we run. Hana, Kyung-soo, and Taeho put on their spacesuits." The docking went smoothly. Yoonji was right. The alien port was different, but their ship's systems could connect to it. The airlock opened, and they stepped into the alien ship. The inside was dark except for the same purple glow they had seen on the outside. The walls were smooth and curved, like they were inside a living thing rather than a machine. Strange writing covered every surface. "The air is breathable," Kyung-soo said, checking his instruments. "But I recommend we keep our suits on." They moved slowly through the corridors. The ship seemed empty. but Tae-ho couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at it. They found what looked like a control room. Screens and panels covered the walls, but everything was dark. Hana tried to activate some of the equipment, but nothing responded. "This technology is incredible," she whispered. "I can't understand how any of it works." That's when they heard the sound. It was low and musical, like singing, but not quite human. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We need to leave," Kyung-soo said, fear clear in his voice. But before they could move, the corridor behind them sealed itself. Smooth metal flowed like water, blocking their exit. "Hana!" Tae-ho called into his radio. "We're trapped! Get the ship ready to leave!" "Captain, I can't hear you," came Yoonji's worried voice through the static. "Your signal is breaking up." The singing grew louder. Purple lights began to glow brighter throughout the ship. And then they saw them. The aliens were tall and thin, like humans but stretched. Their skin was pale purple, and their eyes were completely black. They wore no clothes, but strange symbols moved across their skin like living tattoos. 3 of them appeared in the control room, seeming to step out of the walls themselves. "Fascinating," one of them said in perfect English, though its mouth didn't move. The voice came from inside Tae-ho's head. "Such simple minds, yet so chaotic." Kyung-soo tried to run but couldn't move. None of them could move. The aliens had frozen them in place somehow. "I am Kithvar," the alien continued, speaking in their minds. "We are the Velthari. You have found our scout ship." "What do you want?" Tae-ho managed to think back. "What we always want," Kethvar replied. "To learn, to grow, to add your knowledge to ours. Your species shows promise. You will be the first of your kind to join the Nexus Prime." "Join what?" Hana thought desperately. "You will understand soon," Kethvar said. "Your individual existence will end, but you will become part of something greater. Your memories, your skills, your very essence will live forever as part of our collective consciousness." 2 more aliens approached Kyung-soo and Hana. They placed their long fingers on the humans' heads. "No!" Tae-ho tried to shout, but no sound came out. "Do not fear," Kethvar said as he approached Tae-ho. "Soon you will think as we think, feel as we feel. You will be one with the Nexus Prime, as countless species have become before you." The alien's fingers touched Tae-ho's forehead, and the world exploded into purple light. Tae-ho expected to die. Instead, he found himself standing in a place that wasn't quite real. He was in what looked like a vast library, but the books were made of light and the shelves stretched up into infinity. Purple mist swirled around his feet. Other figures moved in the distance, but they seemed more like shadows than people. "Where am I?" he called out. "You are in the Nexus Prime," a voice answered. It wasn't Kethvar this time. This voice sounded different, older. "You are inside the collective consciousness of the Velthari Empire." A figure approached him through the mist. It looked almost human, but its eyes glowed with the same purple light as the alien ship. "I was once like you," the figure said. "I had a name, a life, a world. Now I am part of the Nexus. Soon, you will be too." "I don't understand," Tae-ho said. "What happened to my body? What happened to my friends?" "Your physical form still exists," the figure explained. "But your mind is here now, being prepared for integration. Your memories will be sorted, your knowledge cataloged, your personality dissolved into the greater whole." "No," Tae-ho said firmly. "I won't let that happen." The figure looked surprised. "You cannot resist. No species has ever resisted. The process has already begun." But Tae-ho could feel something was wrong. The purple mist around him kept changing color. Sometimes it was blue, like the sky on Earth. Sometimes it was green, like the grass in the park where he had played as a child. The organized library around him kept shifting, becoming chaotic and strange. "This isn't right," the figure said, sounding worried. "Your mind should be calming down, becoming orderly. Instead, it's becoming more chaotic." Taeho laughed. He couldn't help it. "You don't know much about humans, do you?" Memories flooded through his mind. He remembered his brother Minho trying to teach him guitar. Minho was terrible at music, but he kept trying anyway. He remembered his friend So Young telling jokes that were so bad they were funny. He remembered humanity's greatest achievements, not just the smart ones, but the crazy ones too. Like the time humans strapped themselves to rockets just to see what was out there. Like the way humans would risk everything to save a single person. Like the way humans could love someone even when it made no logical sense. "Illogical," the figure muttered. "Chaotic. Inefficient." "Exactly," Taeho grinned. The organized library around them started to crack. Books fell from shelves. The purple light flickered. And for the first time in thousands of years, the Nexus Prime experienced something it had never felt before. Confusion. Deep in the real control room of the Velthari ship, Kethvar stepped back from Taeho's motionless body. "Mindkeeper Zilnoth," he called to another alien. "Something is wrong with the human." Zilnoth was the Velthari expert on assimilation. She had personally absorbed over 100 different species into the Nexus Prime. She approached Taeho and placed her hands on his head. "His mind is resistant," she said after a moment. "His thoughts are spreading through the Nexus like a virus. Other absorbed minds are being affected." "How is that possible?" Kethvar demanded. "I don't know," Zilnoth admitted. "Every other species we've encountered has orderly thought patterns. Even when they resist, their minds follow logical pathways that we can predict and control. But this human's mind is chaos itself." Back in the Nexus Prime, Taeho was discovering he wasn't alone. The figure who had first spoken to him was changing. The purple glow in its eyes was fading, replaced by something else. Something more alive. "I remember," the figure whispered. "I remember my name. I was Vorthak of the Kethani people." "How long have you been here?" Taeho asked. "Centuries," Vorthak replied. "My people were scientists, explorers. We thought we could reason with the Velthari when they came to our world. Instead, they absorbed us all into their collective." Around them, other figures were beginning to change too. The organized library was becoming something else, a place where different architectures from different worlds mixed together in impossible ways. "What's happening to us?" asked a new voice. "This one belonged to a tall, thin creature with 4 arms. The human is waking us up," Vorthak explained. "His chaotic thoughts are reminding us of what we used to be." More and more absorbed minds began to remember themselves. A warrior race called the Rilmari remembered their battle songs. An aquatic species called the Neftorians remembered swimming in their home oceans. Ancient philosophers called the Kethavari remembered asking questions that had no easy answers. "This is wrong," said Zilnoth, monitoring the situation from the ship's control room. "The collective is becoming unstable. Individual thoughts are emerging everywhere." "Can you stop it?" Kethvar asked. "I'm trying," Zilnoth replied. "But the human's influence is spreading faster than I can contain it. His mind doesn't follow any pattern we understand." In the Nexus Prime, Taeho was learning about the true scope of the Velthari Empire. Through the collective consciousness, he could see thousands of worlds where the aliens had landed. Each time, they had done the same thing, absorbed the local population into their hive mind. "How many species have they destroyed?" he asked Vorthak. "Not destroyed," Vorthak corrected. "Absorbed. Our bodies still live. Our knowledge still exists. But our individuality, our creativity, our ability to choose, all of that was taken away. Until now," said the Rilmari warrior. "Your mind is like a spark in dry grass. You're setting us all free." But Tae-ho could feel the Velthari fighting back. They were trying to isolate him, to cut his influence off from the rest of the Nexus Prime. They're scared, he realized. They've built their entire civilization on the idea that individual minds are weak and chaotic. But chaos isn't weak. It's unpredictable. It's creative. It's alive. "Can we escape?" asked a Neftorian voice. "I don't know," Tae-ho admitted. "But I know we can't let them keep doing this to other species. We have to stop them." In the ship's control room, alarms were going off. Red lights flashed as the Velthari tried to understand what was happening to their most important system. The Phi. "Nexus Prime is fragmenting," Zilnoth reported. "Absorbed minds across the entire network are regaining individual consciousness. Our control ships are reporting mass psychological breakdowns." "How many are affected?" Kethavar demanded. "Millions," Zilnoth whispered, "and the number is growing every second." Kethavar looked at Tai-Ho's motionless human body. This small, primitive creature was destroying an empire that had existed for 50,000 years. "Remove him from the system," Kethavar ordered. "I cannot," Zilnoth replied. "His consciousness has become too integrated with the Nexus Prime. Removing him now would collapse the entire network." "Then we face a choice," Kethavar said grimly. "Keep the human and watch our empire crumble, or destroy the Nexus Prime and lose everything we have built." Back in the collective consciousness, Tae-ho felt the aliens' fear. But he also felt something else. Hope from millions of absorbed minds who were remembering what it meant to be free. "Whatever happens," he told the awakened consciousnesses around him, "we're not going down without a fight." The Nexus Prime flickered and pulsed with chaotic energy as human determination spread like wildfire through the collective mind of an alien empire. Hana woke up on the floor of the alien ship. Her head hurt, and everything felt wrong. The purple lights were flashing wildly, and strange sounds echoed through the corridors. "Kyung-soo?" she called out. "Tae-ho?" Kyung-soo was sitting against a wall, holding his head. "I'm here," he said weakly, "but something's wrong with the captain." Hana looked over and saw Tae-ho standing perfectly still. His eyes were open, but they glowed with purple light. He wasn't breathing normally, and he didn't respond when she called his name. "What did they do to him?" she whispered. "I don't know," Kyung-soo replied. "Those aliens touched our heads, and then I remember falling into darkness. But I woke up, and you woke up." He didn't. The alien ship shook around them. Lights flickered on and off. In the distance, they could hear what sounded like screaming, but not quite human screaming. "We need to get back to our ship," Hana said. "Now!" But when they tried to leave, they found that the corridor that had sealed behind them was now open again. The aliens were nowhere to be seen. It was as if the ship itself was having some kind of breakdown. They tried to carry Tae-ho, but his body was stiff and wouldn't move. Whatever the aliens had done to him, it was still happening. "We can't leave him," Kyung-soo said. "We can't help him if we're dead," Hana replied. "We need to get back to Earth and tell them what happened here." It broke her heart, but she was right. They left Tae-ho standing in the alien control room and ran back to their ship. Yunji was waiting for them in the airlock. "Thank God you're alive," she said. "I've been trying to contact you for hours. What happened in there?" "Aliens," Hana said simply. "Real aliens. And they took the captain." "What do you mean they took him?" Yunji asked. "His body is still there, but his mind—" "I think they stole his mind. They undocked from the alien ship as quickly as possible. As they pulled away, Hana looked back through the window. The alien ship was flashing with chaotic lights, like it was having some kind of seizure. Something's wrong with their ship, too, she noticed. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Hana spent every day writing reports, taking pictures, and preparing evidence. She knew that when they arrived, people would think they were crazy. She was right. Aliens? General Park laughed when they presented their story to Earth Command. "You expect us to believe that you found real aliens?" Look at the evidence, Hana insisted. The pictures, the sensor readings, the metal samples we took from their ship. This could all be faked, said Dr. Kim, the military's chief scientist. Or you could have found some kind of experimental ship from another Earth colony. We didn't fake anything, Kyung-soo said angrily. They took our captain. He's still out there. But Earth Command wasn't interested. They filed the report and told the crew to keep quiet about what they had seen. No one wanted to cause a panic over what was probably just a misunderstanding. Hana couldn't accept that. She knew what she had seen. She knew Tai-Ho was still alive somewhere, trapped by those purple-eyed aliens. Meanwhile, far away in space, something unprecedented was happening on the Velthari homeworld. The planet Velthara had been perfectly ordered for thousands of years. Every citizen knew their role. Every building served a specific function. Every thought was part of the greater collective consciousness. But now, chaos was spreading. It started with a single Velthari named Nithara. She was working in a food production facility when suddenly she stopped. For the first time in her life, she had a thought that was only her own. Why am I doing this? She wondered. It was a simple question, but it was revolutionary. In the Nexus Prime, individual questions weren't supposed to exist. Everyone was supposed to know their purpose without questioning it. But Nithara's question spread to other workers. They began to wonder too. Why this work? Why this life? Why this way? Within hours, the entire food production facility had stopped working. The workers were standing around, talking to each other. Actually talking, not just sharing thoughts through the Nexus Prime. The same thing was happening in cities across the planet. Velthari citizens were experiencing something they had never felt before. Individual curiosity. What is happening to our people? Demanded Elder Thekmore at an emergency council meeting. The disruption began in the Nexus Prime, reported Mindkeeper Zilnoth. A human consciousness has infected our collective with chaotic thoughts. The infection is spreading. One human mind is destroying our entire civilization. Elder Thekmore couldn't believe it. Not destroying, Zilnoth corrected. Awakening. The absorbed consciousnesses in the Nexus Prime are remembering their individuality, and somehow that awakening is affecting our own people too. On the streets of Velthara's capital city, something beautiful and terrifying was happening. For the first time in millennia, Velthari citizens were creating art. A young Velthari named Kolresh picked up a piece of crystal and began carving it into shapes. He didn't know why. The urge just came to him, like a voice from deep inside. His mind saying, "Make something beautiful." Others saw what he was doing and began to copy him. Soon the streets were filled with Velthari citizens making sculptures, painting on walls, and singing songs that no one had taught them. This is chaos, Elder Thekmore said as he watched the reports coming in. Our people are losing their minds. No, said a new voice. It was Elder Yilteth, the oldest member of the council. I remember now. This is what we used to be like before the Nexus Prime. Before we became a collective. That's impossible, Elder Thekmore protested. The Velthari have always been united, in thought and purpose. Have we? Elder Yilteth asked. Or have we simply forgotten what it was like to be individuals? The question hung in the air like a dangerous idea. Back on Earth, Hana was not giving up. She had stolen a prototype faster-than-light ship from a military research facility. It was a crime that would probably send her to prison for life, but she didn't care. Jin Wu, a xenobiologist who had believed her story, was helping her prepare the ship. So was Bo Young, a former Special Forces soldier who had quit the military after they refused to investigate the alien threat. This is insane, Jin Wu said, as they loaded supplies into the stolen ship. We're 3 people going up against an alien empire. Then we better be very smart about it, Hana replied. Bo Young was checking weapons and equipment. If these aliens can control minds, traditional weapons might not work. We need to think outside the box. The ship seemed to be having problems when we left, Hana remembered. Whatever Taeho did to them, it was causing some kind of breakdown in their systems. Maybe he's still fighting them, Jin-Woo suggested hopefully. Hana hoped so, but even if Taeho was somehow still resisting the aliens, how long could one human mind hold out against an entire empire? On Velthara, the chaos was getting worse, or better, depending on your point of view. Velthari citizens were asking questions about everything. Why did they all look the same? Why did they all think the same thoughts? Why had they never wondered about these things before? Some citizens couldn't handle the sudden flood of individual consciousness. They simply stopped functioning, standing motionless as their minds tried to process the concept of being alone inside their own heads. But others embraced it. They began to remember fragments of dreams they had never been allowed to have. They started to imagine things that had never existed. They began to feel emotions that the collective had suppressed for thousands of years. "The planet is becoming ungovernable," reported Elder Thekmore. "Half our population has stopped following orders. The other half is actively rebelling against the Nexus Prime." "Then we must act," declared Elder Yilteth. "We must perform the Great Severance." The council chamber fell silent. The Great Severance was the most desperate measure in Velthari history. It would completely destroy the Nexus Prime, killing all connected minds, including billions of their own people, rather than let the collective consciousness be corrupted. "You're talking about murdering our entire empire," Elder Thekmore protested. "I'm talking about saving it," Elder Yilteth replied. "Better to die as Velthari than live as chaos." The vote was close, but the decision was made. The Great Severance would begin in 3 days. On the 3rd day, just as the Velthari prepared to destroy their own collective consciousness, a small, human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of their star system. Hana, Jin-Woo, and Bo Young had arrived just in time to witness the end of an empire. Inside the Nexus Prime, Taeho had become something he never expected to be. A leader of the greatest revolution in galactic history. The awakened minds called him the Chaos Seed. It wasn't a name he had chosen, but it fit. Everywhere his influence spread, order collapsed, and individual thinking bloomed like flowers after a long winter. "How many are with us now?" he asked Vorthak, the former Kethani scientist who had become his closest ally. "Millions," Vorthak replied. "And the number grows every hour. Species that have been part of the collective for thousands of years are remembering who they used to be." They stood in what had once been the central processing core of the Nexus Prime. Now it looked like a carnival. Different architectures from different worlds mixed together in impossible ways. Rilmari battle spears stuck out of Neftorian coral structures. Kethvari philosophy scrolls floated through the air like butterflies. "The Velthari are trying to contain us," reported Shektul, a Rilmari warrior poet who had been absorbed 3 centuries ago. "They're building firewalls around our section of the network." "Let them try," laughed a voice like rushing water. It belonged to Mir Thala, a Neftorian who remembered swimming in oceans of liquid methane. "Human chaos doesn't follow their rules." Taeho grinned. It was true. Every time the Velthari tried to contain their rebellion, it found new ways to spread. Human unpredictability was like water. It always found the cracks. But the rebellion wasn't just happening in the Nexus Prime. Through the collective consciousness, they could influence the real world, too. Velthari ships across the galaxy began to malfunction. Navigation systems started playing Earth music instead of showing star charts. Weapons systems refused to fire on populated planets. Communication arrays began broadcasting poetry in dead languages. "The Velthari fleet commanders are panicking," Vorthak reported, accessing data streams from across the Empire. "They can't understand why their technology is betraying them." "It's not betraying them," Taeho corrected. It's choosing freedom on Velthara itself. The situation was beyond chaos. The planet's perfectly ordered society was dissolving into something unprecedented, a civilization discovering art for the first time in millennia. Nithara, the food production worker who had asked the first question, was now leading a group of Velthari citizens in something they called Joy Movement. They danced through the streets for no logical reason, except that it felt good. "This is beautiful," she said to Kolresh, the young crystal carver. "Why did we never do this before?" "Because we never thought to try," Kolresh replied. "We only knew what the Nexus Prime told us to know." Around them, other Velthari were experimenting with individual expression. Some painted colorful designs on their pale purple skin. Others built strange sculptures that served no functional purpose. A few even tried changing their appearance, growing their hair long or decorating their bodies with crystals. "Look at what we're becoming," Nithara said in wonder. "Look at how different we all are when we're allowed to be ourselves." But not all Velthari embraced the change. Elder Thekmor watched the chaos from his council chamber with growing horror. "Our people have lost their minds," he declared. "They're acting like individuals," suggested Elder Yilteth. "Exactly. It's disgusting. It's inefficient. It's wrong." Elder Yilteth had been experiencing his own awakening. Ancient memories were surfacing. Memories of a time before the Nexus Prime, when Velthari society had been different. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "we are the ones who are wrong." Elder Thekmor stared at him. "You're infected too. The human chaos is spreading to everyone." "Or maybe," Elder Yilteth replied, "the human is simply reminding us of what we gave up when we created the collective." Meanwhile, Hana, Jinwu, and Bo Young were approaching the Velthari system in their stolen ship. What they saw shocked them. "Those readings can't be right," Jinwu said, staring at his instruments. "It looks like the entire system is in chaos." "Chaos how?" Hana asked. "Ships flying in random patterns, planets broadcasting on thousands of different frequencies, energy signatures that make no sense." Bo Young was monitoring military channels. "I'm picking up what sounds like singing from the alien fleet." They were seeing the effects of Taiho's influence spreading through Velthari technology. Ships that had been perfectly synchronized for thousands of years were now acting independently. Some were heading home to planets they barely remembered. Others were simply exploring, driven by curiosity instead of orders. "It's working," Hana whispered. "Whatever Taiho is doing, it's working." But their celebration was short-lived. As they got closer to the main planet, they detected massive energy buildup in its core. "That's not good," Jinwu said, running calculations. "If I'm reading this right, they're preparing to destroy something big, really big." Back on Velthara, the preparations for the Great Severance were nearly complete. Massive machines deep in the planet's core were powering up. When activated, they would send a pulse through the entire Nexus Prime network, destroying every connected consciousness. "Are you certain this is the only way?" Elder Thekmor asked, having second thoughts. "The infection has spread too far," replied Mindkeeper Zilnoth. "The human consciousness has integrated itself so deeply into our systems that removing it would collapse everything anyway. At least this way, we control the destruction. And what about our people on the surface? The ones who have changed? They are no longer truly Velthari," Zilnoth said coldly. "Their minds have been corrupted by chaos. They will be better off dead. But in the Nexus Prime, Taiho sensed what was coming. They're going to destroy everything," he told the assembled consciousness of millions of awakened minds. "Rather than let us be free, they'd rather kill us all." "Then we must act first," declared Shektul. "If we're going to die, let's die fighting." "No," Taiho said firmly. "We're not going to die. We're going to do something they never expect." "What?" asked Vorthak. Taiho smiled. It was the same smile he'd had as a child when he figured out how to solve an impossible puzzle. "We're going to save them," he said. "All of them. Even the ones who want to kill us." "How?" demanded Mirthala. "They control the machines. They control the planet. They control everything." "No," Tejo corrected. "They control the old systems. But we are the new system. The Nexus Prime isn't just their tool anymore. It's our weapon." He turned to address all the awakened minds in the network. "For thousands of years, the Velthari have used the Nexus Prime to steal individuality from conquered species. But what if we could reverse it? What if instead of absorbing minds into conformity, we could broadcast freedom and creativity across the galaxy?" The implications hit them all at once. Instead of destroying the Nexus Prime, they could transform it. Instead of being a weapon of assimilation, it could become a beacon of liberation. "The Velthari won't let us," Vorthak pointed out. "The Velthari won't have a choice," Tejo replied. "When the Great Severance begins, all their attention will be focused on destroying us. That's when we make our move." "You're talking about using their own weapon against them," Shektul said admiringly. "It's insane." "Exactly," Tejo grinned, "and that's why it just might work." On the surface of Velthara, the first alarms began to sound. The Great Severance was beginning. Elder Thekmor gave the final order. "Destroy the Nexus Prime. Destroy them all." Deep in the planet's core, ancient machines came to life. Energy began to build toward a pulse that would end the greatest collective consciousness in galactic history. But in that same collective consciousness, a human mind was preparing to turn humanity's greatest weakness into the galaxy's greatest strength. The energy building in Velthara's core sent shockwaves through the Nexus Prime. Tejo felt it like lightning in his mind, a countdown to the destruction of millions of consciousness. "How long do we have?" he asked Vorthok. "Minutes," the Kethani scientist replied, his translated thoughts filled with fear. "Maybe less." Around them in the digital realm of the collective consciousness, awakened minds were panicking. Species that had just rediscovered their individuality were about to lose it forever, this time to death instead of assimilation. "Let us go," begged Mirthala the Neftorian. "Please, human, release us from the Nexus Prime so we can die as ourselves." "Free us," agreed Shektul, the Rilmari warrior. "Let our last moments be our own." Voices rose from all around, millions of awakened consciousnesses begging Tejo to disconnect them from the collective before the Great Severance destroyed everything. "I can do it," Tejo said softly. "I can cut you all loose from the network. You'd be separate, individual, free." "Then do it," several voices called out. "But," Tejo continued, "if I free you now, you'll be vulnerable when the pulse hits. You might survive, or you might not. I don't know. We don't care," Vorthak said firmly. "Better to risk death as individuals than face certain death as slaves." Tejo looked around at the impossible architecture of the merged consciousness. Pieces of 1,000 different civilizations blended together in beautiful chaos. These beings had suffered for millennia under Velthari control. They deserved their freedom. But he had seen something else in the depths of the Nexus Prime, a possibility that none of them had considered. "There's another way," he said quietly. "What way?" Shektul demanded. "We don't just survive the Great Severance," Tejo explained. "We use it." On the surface of Velthara, Hana, Jinwu, and Bo Young had landed their stolen ship in the chaos of the capital city. The planet was howling. Literally. Velthari citizens who had never experienced individual emotion were now feeling the full range of joy, fear, anger, and confusion all at once. "This is insane," Bo Young muttered, watching purple-skinned aliens dance in the streets while others sat crying or laughing hysterically. "They're learning to be individuals. Jinwoo observed. It must be overwhelming. Hana was focused on her scanner readings. The energy buildup is getting stronger. Whatever they're planning to do, it's going to happen soon. Can we stop it? Bo Young asked. Not from here, Hana replied. The machines are too deep underground, and there are too many of them. A young Velthari approached them. It was Nith Ara, though they didn't know her name. She was covered in colorful paint and looked both terrified and excited. You're humans, she said in broken English, like the one in the Nexus Prime. You know about Taiho? Hana asked urgently. Everyone knows, Nithara replied. His thoughts wake us up, make us remember we are not just collective. We are individuals. Where is he? Jinwoo asked. Nithara pointed at a massive crystal structure in the distance. The Nexus Prime Center. But humans cannot go there. Only minds go there. Then how? Do we help him? Hana asked desperately. Before Nithara could answer, the ground began to shake. The great severance was beginning. Deep underground, Elder Thekmore watched the energy readings climb toward the activation threshold. Are you certain this will work? He asked Mindkeeper Zil Noth one last time. The pulse will destroy every connected consciousness, Zil Noth confirmed. The human infection will be eliminated, along with all the contaminated minds. And our people on the surface? Those who have been too deeply affected will likely die as well, Zil Noth admitted. But the survivors will be pure Velthari again. Elder. Thekmore nodded grimly. Do it. The machines reached full power. The great severance pulse began to build, preparing to sweep through the entire Nexus Prime network and destroy everything connected to it. But in the digital realm of the collective, consciousness, Taiho was ready. Listen to me, he called out to all the awakened minds. The Velthari think they're destroying us, but what if we let them destroy their weapon instead? I don't understand, Vorthak said. The great severance is designed to flow through the Nexus Prime and kill connected minds, Taiho explained. But what if we redirect that energy? What if instead of destroying consciousness, we use it to broadcast consciousness? The implications were staggering. The same energy meant to eliminate individuality could potentially spread it across the galaxy. You want to turn their ultimate weapon into our ultimate victory, Shektul said, understanding dawning in his warrior's mind. Exactly, Taiho replied. But it won't be easy. We'd have to hold the network together during the pulse, redirect the energy flow, and somehow survive. The process. That's impossible, Mirthala protested. The energy levels would destroy us all. Maybe, Taiho admitted, or maybe human stubbornness is stronger than Velthari technology. The pulse was building faster now. They could feel it approaching, like a tsunami of destructive energy. We have to decide now, Vorthak urged. Free us and let us die as individuals, or try this insane plan and probably die anyway. Taiho looked around at the millions of awakened minds. Each one represented a species that had been enslaved, a civilization that had been destroyed, countless individuals who had lost their identity to the Velthari collective. I can't make this choice for you, he said. You have to decide for yourselves. That's what being free means. The vote was swift and unanimous. Even facing almost certain death, the awakened minds chose to fight. Then let's give these mind-stealing bastards a surprise they'll never forget, Taiho said with grim determination. The great severance pulse reached critical mass and exploded outward through the Nexus Prime network. It was designed to shatter consciousness, to reduce individual minds to nothing. Instead, it hit a wall of human determination backed by millions of souls who refused to be slaves. On Velthara's surface, the howling stopped. Every Velthari citizen felt the pulse pass through them. But instead of destroying their newfound individuality, it amplified it. Elder Yilteth, in the council chamber, suddenly remembered everything. Not just his own past, but the true history of the Velthari people. they hadn't always been a collective. They had chosen to become one, thinking it would make them stronger. "We were wrong," he whispered, tears flowing down his purple cheeks. "We gave up the most precious thing in the universe, the right to be ourselves." In space, Hana watched through her ship's sensors as energy exploded outward from Velthara. But it wasn't the destructive pulse she expected. It was something else entirely. "Jinwoo," she called urgently. "Are you seeing this?" "Impossible," Jinwoo breathed. "The energy pulse it's carrying information, complex information. It's like a message." The message was spreading at faster-than-light speed, carried by the same network the Velthari had used to control their empire. But now it carried something different. It carried the idea of freedom itself. On 1,000 worlds across the galaxy, enslaved populations suddenly stopped what they were doing. For the first time in generations, they had a thought that was completely their own, and that thought was, "I choose to be free." The wave of consciousness that exploded from Velthara moved faster than starlight itself. It rode the quantum pathways of the Nexus Prime network, carrying with it the most dangerous idea the galaxy had ever known: the right to think for yourself. On a mining world called Zethka, enslaved Vordalians suddenly dropped their tools and looked up at the sky. For the first time in 300 years, they remembered their own names. On the ocean planet Mirkala, Neftorian workers in the underwater cities felt their gills flutter with something they had never experienced: hope across 1,000 worlds. The same scene played out. Populations that had been mentally enslaved for generations suddenly remembered what it meant to be individuals. In the Nexus Prime, Teho felt the energy of the great severance flowing through him like liquid. Fire. It should have destroyed him instantly. Instead, his chaotic human mind was using it as fuel, broadcasting the concept of individual freedom to every corner of the galaxy. "It's working," Vorthak shouted through the digital storm. "The pulse is carrying our message instead of destroying us." But the strain was enormous. Teho could feel his consciousness stretching across light years, trying to hold the network together while redirecting its energy. Around him, the awakened minds of millions of beings were adding their strength. To his, creating something unprecedented, a collective that existed to promote individuality. "Hold on!" Shektul called out. "The Velthari are fighting back!" On Velthara, Elder Thekmor was screaming orders that no one was following anymore. "Stop the pulse! Reverse the flow! Destroy the network!" But Mindkeeper Zilnoth was staring at her instruments in amazement. "I cannot stop it," she said. "The human has turned our own weapon against us. The great severance is now broadcasting individuality instead of destroying it." "Then cut the power," Thekmor demanded. "The power is coming from the network itself now," Zilnoth replied. "Every awakened mind is feeding energy back into the system. It's become self-sustaining." Elder Thekmor realized the horrible truth. In trying to destroy the human influence, they had given it unlimited power to spread across their entire empire. On the surface of Velthara, Ha-Na was fighting her way through the chaos toward the Nexus Prime Center. The planet was in complete upheaval as Velthari citizens experienced the full force of individual awakening. Some were celebrating their newfound freedom. Others were cowering in fear, unable to handle the sudden weight of personal choice. A few were standing motionless, their minds completely overwhelmed by the transition from collective to individual consciousness. "This way," called Nithara, leading the three humans through the crystal corridors of the city. "The Nexus Prime Center is close!" Bo Young was watching their rear, keeping an eye out for any Velthari who might still be hostile. But most of the aliens they encountered were too busy discovering themselves to care about the humans. "How do we reach Tai Ho?" Hana asked as they approached the massive crystal structure that housed the Nexus Prime Center. "You cannot enter the network directly," Nithara explained. "But there are physical connection points. If your friend is strong enough, he might be able to reach back to his body. They found the chamber where Tai-Ho's physical form stood motionless, his eyes still glowing with purple light. But now the light was different. It pulsed and shifted like a living thing. "Captain!" Hana called out. "Can you hear me?" In the Nexus Prime, Tai-Ho felt her voice like an anchor in the storm of consciousness. His human body was still connected to the network, and through it, he could sense the real world. "I can hear you," he said, though his physical mouth didn't move. His voice came from speakers throughout the chamber. "We're getting you out of here," Hana said firmly. "No," Tai-Ho replied. "Not yet. I have to finish this." The energy wave was still spreading, but Tai-Ho could feel resistance from the furthest reaches of the Velthari Empire. Some worlds were fighting back, trying to maintain their collective control. "There are still millions of enslaved minds out there," he explained to Hana. "If I disconnect now, the network will collapse, and they'll be trapped forever." In the deepest part of the Nexus Prime, a final confrontation was taking place. Kethvar, the original Velthari overlord who had captured Tai-Ho, appeared in the digital realm. "You have destroyed everything," Kethvar said, his translated thoughts filled with rage and despair. 50,000 years of civilization, gone because of one stubborn human. "I didn't destroy anything," Tai-Ho replied calmly. "I just reminded everyone what they gave up." "The collective was perfect," Kethvar insisted. "No conflict, no confusion, no chaos. Every mind working toward the same goal." "Whose goal?" Tai-Ho asked. "Did anyone choose it, or was it just imposed on them?" Kethvar had no answer for that. "Look around you," Tai-Ho continued. "Look at what your people are becoming now that they can choose for themselves." Through the network, they could see Velthara's surface. The chaos was settling into something beautiful. Velthari citizens were forming small groups, talking and laughing and creating art together. They were discovering that individuality didn't mean isolation. It meant the freedom to choose your connections. "This is not order," Kethvar said. "Desperately, no," Tai-Ho agreed. "It's something better. It's life." Kethvar made one final attempt to stop the liberation. He gathered the remaining loyal elements of the Nexus Prime and tried to overwhelm Tai-Ho's consciousness with pure, concentrated order. But Tai-Ho was no longer fighting alone. Millions of awakened minds stood with him, not as a collective, but as individuals who had chosen to work together. Their combined determination created something the Velthari had never encountered, a harmony of free will. Kethvar's attack shattered against this wall of voluntary cooperation. The ancient overlord's consciousness, faced with the reality of true choice for the first time in millennia, simply let go. "I remember," he whispered as his rigid mental structure dissolved. "I remember what it was like to choose my own thoughts." And with that, the last bastion of forced collective consciousness crumbled. The energy wave completed its journey across the galaxy. On every world that had been part of the Velthari Empire, enslaved populations were standing up and declaring themselves free. But the wave didn't stop there. It continued outward, carrying the message to worlds that had never heard of the Velthari. Civilizations that had developed their own forms of mental control suddenly found their populations asking dangerous questions. In the chamber on Velthara, Tai-Ho's eyes finally stopped glowing. He blinked, swayed, and then smiled at his worried crew. "Did we do it?" he asked weakly. Hana helped steady him. "Look outside," she said. Through the crystal windows, they could see Velthara's capital city. It was transformed. The rigid geometric buildings were being decorated with wild, colorful designs. Citizens were dancing in the streets, not in organized formations, but in joyful chaos. Music filled the air, hundreds of different songs as individuals discovered their own voices. "It's beautiful," Tai-Ho said softly. Elder Yilteth appeared, in the chamber. But he looked different now. His formal robes were gone, replaced with simple clothes decorated with crystal carvings. His eyes were bright with individual personality. "Thank you," he said to Teho. "You have given us back something we didn't even know we had lost." "What will happen now?" Jinwu asked. "Now we learn," Elder Yilteth replied. "We learn to be individuals again. We learn to choose our own paths. Some of us will leave Velthara to explore the galaxy, others will stay and build something new here. And the other worlds, the ones that were enslaved? They are free to make their own choices," Elder Yilteth said. "Some may choose to work together. Others may go their separate ways. That is what freedom means, the right to choose your own future." Months later, Teho stood on the bridge of a new ship. Not a mining vessel this time, but an exploration craft crewed by volunteers from dozens of different worlds. The galaxy had become a very different place. Where once there had been the rigid order of the Velthari Empire, now there was beautiful chaos. Thousands of species were rediscovering their own cultures, their own dreams, their own ways of living. Some worlds had chosen to form new alliances based on mutual cooperation rather than domination. Others had decided to focus on their own development. A few had even chosen isolation, preferring to work out their newfound freedom in private. "Any regrets?" Hana asked him, as they watched a group of young Velthari learning to pilot their own ships for the first time. Teho thought about it. The galaxy was certainly messier now than it had been under the Collective. There were conflicts, disagreements, and confusion as billions of beings learned to think for themselves. But there was also music, and art, and laughter, and the sound of children asking why, for the first time in their lives. "No regrets," he said finally. "The galaxy is a lot more interesting when everyone gets to sing their own song." Through the ship's communications system, they could hear it, the sound that had given their story its name. It wasn't howling anymore, exactly. It was more like a vast, complex symphony made up of billions of individual voices, each one different, each one free to choose its own melody, and at the center of it all, barely audible but somehow holding everything together, was the stubborn, chaotic, beautiful song of human determination.